Hello, and thank you for being here for this episode of the Canmore Trust Podcast. We will be dealing with the subjects of mental ill health and suicide, and so your safety is paramount to us here at the Canmore Trust. If anything about today's discussion activates concerns within you about your own safety, please do reach out. You can engage with the Canmore Trust anytime by texting Canmore 85258 day and night. Or you can call Papyrus, the 24/7 Hope line, on 0800 068 4141. Or you can call Samaritans any time of the day or night on 116 123. The Canmore Trust website, www.thecanmoretrust.co.uk, has an extensive list of resources for anyone seeking help on any aspect of well-being, mental ill health or suicide. Please look at it and please use it. If you're struggling, please reach out. And if you're concerned about anyone else, please also reach out. Thank you so much. And now it's my pleasure to turn to our guest today on this Canmore Trust podcast, Sharon Johnstone. And Sharon, it's good to meet a fellow Ayrshire buddy. You're so welcome.
Thank you, John. It's lovely to be here. I was delighted to be asked. Obviously, it's not something you want to be talking about, but it's very important, isn't it?
So it is indeed, and you've got a story to tell. So
yeah.
Please, before we delve into that, can you tell us a wee bit about yourself and your background?
Yes, my name's Sharon, obviously. I come from Ayr, grew up in Ayr, in a housing scheme, I think we would say, which was lovely. I had a nice, normal childhood by all accounts, and went to school in Ayr, and I left school when I was 16. I was just so desperate. I think things are very different now at school, where kids are encouraged to do better and to go the university route and all that, which probably wasn't for kids that came from a housing scheme at that time. So I left school at 16 and I was a hairdresser for a few years. And then I met my husband, Neil. I was actually only 17 when I met Neil in Club de Mar, where I shouldn't have been.
Did you offer to cut his hair?
And I did actually cut his hair after that, and his pals. But I was married when I was 21. And the very next year, actually, we had our first child. So I had lots of wee jobs in between having children. We've got 4 children. So in between that, I had wee jobs, all different things. So
exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, sadly, you have lost to suicide. And I know you've lost more than once to suicide. And we'll talk about that as we go forward in the podcast. But please, can you tell us about that, and particularly about your son, Lewis?
Lewis was a big Egypt. That's the best thing we can say.
There's a good Ayrshire term, a big Egypt.
He was a lovely big boy. He was the biggest personality and the biggest person in our lives in every way. He was almost 6'5". Wow. And I'm only 5'6", Neil's only 5'10". I don't think he is quite 5'10". I think he kids on.
That's really interesting, because I say I'm 5'10" as well.
He
I'm not
he's 5'10". I don't think he is. He'll be raging when he hears that. So he was our first, and he was the first grandchild, and just a huge personality and a lovely, kind, thoughtful boy, although loud and brash outside, an absolute menace on the football field, where he was the biggest striker in that league, probably.
Okay.
We had a nice life. We have 3 other children as well.
So Lewis was the eldest.
Lewis was the eldest.
Yeah.
Then we had Lucy 2 years after. There's going to be a wee theme here. And then we had Lyle 6 years after that, and then we had Luca 6 years after that. So there was a good spread of age.
So all L's.
Yes,
any particular
all
reason
L's.
for
I know.
that?
No, well, at first it was Lewis because we liked the name. Lucy was always going to be Lucy, and then Lyle just happened to be a Lyle. And then I was going to call Luca something else, but then the kids all went, "Oh no, Mum, you'll think you didn't love him if you don't give him an L." So he was Luca. But I would probably hit 10 wains, but No. Neil said, no, enough's enough. So Lewis had... there was never really anything that we could have put our finger on. He had after he left school, he was going to play football. That was it. That was his whole life. I'm going to play football. And I think when they're at that level, they're promised they're going to play football. And we could get into a whole other thing about adults promising kids things in football teams to get them to them. And he was meant to sign a professional contract and things fell through, as it did for 3 other boys that were meant to do it at the same time. But it just devastated him. And he wasn't quite the same after it. And he just seemed to be a bit lost after he left school. He went to work with his friend in the barbers, and of course that's a whole other scene. And he ended up covered in tattoos, and he loved that, but he still something was lacking, and he was struggling. And I didn't know what he was doing with his money. He didn't seem to make much money, or he was squandering it. But he was buying clothes and going out. And I said to Neil, why don't you get him to come and work with you? Neil's a decorator and we have our own business. I said, why don't you bring him in, get him a trade, make sure he's got money in his pocket every week. So I thought maybe that was one of the issues that he was struggling with as well. And obviously the football route was going to make him a lot of money, and it didn't in the end.
Yeah.
So that was probably about the August things started to sort of go a wee bit pear-shaped. Actually, after his 21st birthday, and at the end of June, he started to be quite down, and his weight had been up and down, and been struggling for a few months, but not in a big way that you would have said there's something wrong with that boy. But when we did realise, we're like, right, we'll have to go to the doctor. This is what you do. People go to the doctor, they get antidepressants, they get better, and that's an end to it. And we took him, and it just made it worse. I think we were only about 4 weeks in. I need to go back to the doctor for a review, and we didn't see the normal doctor that we see, who was lovely. She was off, and he saw a different doctor who just kind of looked at us as if, why are you here? Why are you speaking for him? And he's like, Mum, you tell them. So I said, look, the doctor said, if this isn't working, we'll up this medication. We'll look at this medication. I said, just keep taking it. So we came away a wee bit defeated. Went to the pharmacy to get this new prescription filled, and the pharmacist came through and she said to me, is this the first prescription? I said, no, it's actually second. And she obviously knew it wasn't my name in the prescription. And she said to me, you do know that things will get worse before they get better. And I thought, no, I didn't. Nobody said that to me. My expectation was that this would just help him. We had never had really any experience before that. I just other family members I knew had taken antidepressants, and I know they're great for some people, but they didn't help him.
Okay.
So he very quickly went downhill, and we had an occasion where he was very upset in the room, and he punched a hole in his wall, and that's just not him. And Neil went through and he's like, right, calm down. Next morning we phoned our local hospital. We have the Ailsa hospital, and I thought that's what you do. That's who you phone. They've got a psychiatric team, and spoke to a mental health nurse. And I want to be clear that this was nearly 10 years ago, and my hope is things are better. And I know they'll say things have moved on, but it was hellish. And I listened to the phone call, and this mental health nurse had said, oh, what age are you? And just basically went through it all with him. And are you suicidal? Yeah, I am. You're only 21. You're too young to kill yourself. Don't do that. I'll make sure I get you an emergency appointment. So his emergency appointment was for 10 days later. And he died in day 7.
So, Sharon, can I just stop you there for a moment? Just sensing the utter pain that a mother, a father's heart, a brother, a sister's heart feels in that moment, and knowing that there will be many who will listen and watch this podcast for whom that is an utter reality.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to stop and acknowledge the pain of that, and just thank you for sharing that story.
I also didn't realise we could have gone to A&E at that point. That had never been in my radar. It's drummed into us. You don't go to A&E unless there's a bit of you hanging off, unless you're having a heart attack. It's a mental health thing.
Yeah.
I didn't know I could take him to A&E.
Yeah. And that's another really important story for anyone watching or listening. If you are in crisis or you have someone else in crisis, an emergency department is a helpful place to attend. So you lost your son?
Yeah, my big boy.
Okay. Now, we'll come back to the aftermath of that in a second, if we may, but like the Gibson family, the Johnstone family, this was not the first time that you had been impacted by suicide. Can you say just a little bit about that?
Yeah, I had... it's difficult because when I say my mum and dad, it's not my stepdad, he's my dad. But I have a biological father. My mum and dad were divorced when I was 4.
Yeah.
And I hadn't had any contact with him. And he lived up in Aberdeenshire. And in 2004, 2005, he was in touch with me again. And I kind of held him at arm's length a wee bit because I didn't want to upset my mum and dad. They had a terrible relationship with him, and there was a lot of bad stuff had gone on when I was wee. So I held him at arm's length, and then he tried to sort of push his way in a wee bit, and I didn't see him. I'd never met him again, actually, but just spoken to him on the phone. And then a few months later, my uncle phoned me and said, "Hey, I've got something to tell you. Your dad has taken his own life." And my first thing that I said to him on the phone was, "Oh my God, is this my fault because I wouldn't see him?" And he was like, "Absolutely not." And I mean, I hadn't seen this man since I was wee, my uncle. So, I mean, he could have said, "Oh, it was your fault." But he's like, "No, absolutely not." He said, "You're not to blame for this." He said, "Your dad was an alcoholic." He said, and I didn't know that either. And he had bipolar disorder. That was his suggestion that it was because he was untreated. So I thought they were a very close family. But I think there was a lot of problems. So I wasn't aware of any of that. But I didn't tell my children any of that because I felt that they didn't know him, and they didn't need to know that had happened to him.
Yeah.
So.
And so the story of suicide reverberates around families, which is so frequently the case. You've shared with me before that Lewis was subjected to online bullying and harassment.
Yeah.
Are you able to share something of that? Because this is an aspect of your story which I'd like to really draw out today, because in the Canmore Trust we're often contacted by people who are facing a suicidal crisis, and a major part of that is something that's happening online.
Mm-hmm. So, social media. 2016, social media is probably, hopefully, better. Was like the Wild West. And I know I say that all the time. It was just hell. You could report things, the report button. Nobody would do anything. Nobody would say anything. And Lewis was not a saint. And I always want to make that clear to my own kids as well. Lewis was a bugger. And I'm sure he gave as good as he got in a lot of situations. But at that point, there was pile-ons, and people got great joy from saying things about people that just weren't true. And I would say to him, "Look, that's dreadful. Is that upsetting?" He's like, "I don't care. I know it's not true," or "That's a lie," or whatever. And he would brush it off. There had been one particular incident with an ex-girlfriend, and it tipped him over the edge. I know it did. And he said, "She's trying to ruin my life." And he was really upset. And that was the night with the hole in the wall, punched the hole. And he just was distraught. And we didn't know what to do. And we phoned the police and said, "Look, can you please help us with this?" And apparently they went to visit them. But we never heard anything back from the police. And I spoke to a friend who was a sergeant in that station and said, look, I never heard anything back. What did they do? And they were like, we'll get them to get back to you. And they never. And we're still waiting to hear what was said and what was done. And the posts were never taken down for months. Okay. And I was on looking at them thinking, you did this. Okay. And I think people have to live with what they've done. People have to live with what they've said about somebody online, and not just my boy. If you say something and you put it out there, it's out there forever. Yeah. People will never forget that you've done that. Never forget that you've said that about somebody. You have destroyed someone's spirit. Yeah. And the only thing that I would cling on to is the hope that you would grow up. You would, I mean, some of them were adults, that you would maybe find yourself in that position, or you would have children in the future that are bullied online. Things that you say to people stay with them, hurtful things, forever. Yeah. People don't always remember a lovely comment that somebody made to them, but they remember if someone made them feel terrible. Yeah.
And again, the importance of kindness and how we need to reverse this in society, where people just feel, particularly online, able to say anything at all. Emboldened, that's a good word. Whereas, let's turn this around and make this a kinder society. Mm-hmm. So,
nobody's perfect. Everybody makes mistakes. I get that. And you can be drawn into things sometimes. Again, that's where it ends up being a pile on online. And you see it with celebrities and people saying horrible things about people they don't even know. They don't know the truth. They don't know the situation.
Yeah. I'm just going to go back to a comment you made there, which I just found... It so warmed me. You said Lewis wasn't perfect. Lewis was a bugger.
Oh, he wasn't.
Yeah, and one of the things that I feel a lot in the suicide community is there's a tendency to beatification of those that we've lost. You know, and let me tell you, there are some beautiful and amazing people that we've lost, but we've also lost human beings who have struggled with life, and who have fallen over at the first and the second and the third and the fourth, and we're all in this together. Yeah. It feels like what you've demonstrated there is for Lewis, as for all of us who have been in suicidal crisis and those who have taken their lives, it's like pieces of a jigsaw going in. It's not one thing, it's pieces of a jigsaw that make a bigger picture, and it's that bigger picture that causes an individual to say, I don't want to be here anymore. Would you agree with that?
I think it is. It's lots of wee things. There was the football disappointment. He'd had a lovely wee girlfriend for years and years, his first girlfriend, and that...
I love how girlfriends are always wee in here, Sharon.
Yeah, I know everything's a wee.
Always, I've got a wee girlfriend.
I know, and that, I fully believe you wouldn't back out with her. But it's lots of wee things, and they're boys, and I know obviously girls have these issues as well, but for me, I've got 3 boys. And I know what my daughter's like. So boys are sensitive. Boys are fragile. Not all of them, but they are. Yeah. And more than you would care to believe, and more than you would care to admit to, life is so fragile. And I think that someone can die in a split second so easily. Yeah. That shocked me so much, because it's like you're here and then you're not.
Bit of a political question. Would you be an advocate for banning social media for under 16s?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
No hesitation?
None. I think, obviously I've got children. Obviously they've been in social media, but there are times they shouldn't have. In the early days as well, Luca had an iPad. Luca was 6. And I think we should never have let him have an iPad. Not that I think he was exposed to anything, but I know some of my friends' kids have been. They've been watching a wee YouTube video about something, and then something horrific has popped up. Yeah. And I know that's our responsibility to set these filters. But if you're not aware, sometimes as adults, we have to be responsible for the kids. Yeah.
And the reality is that our kids are way ahead of us in terms of their understanding of IT and breaching systems and securities and all the rest of it.
Again, we were having a discussion about trolling. People say things. to kids online, and there's access to kids that the adults shouldn't have. So
you're an advocate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You've touched on this already, but what clear lessons do you think we could learn from Lewis's death?
If you take a boy to see a GP or a doctor or at the hospital who's never at the doctor for anything, and they tell you they are struggling and they don't want to be here, please listen to them. I get that I know it's always about the money, and people's lives shouldn't be about the money. The funding, the waiting lists. Lewis went in a waiting list for support. That was part of we'll get you therapy. And the thing came in, first of all, it was group therapy. And second of all, it was like 6 months wait at that time. So we're like, what do? Do you just take tablets and hope for the best? And if those tablets don't work, you go back in 3 months and get a different packet of tablets, and the cycle continues. I don't think that's good enough.
And of course, there is the reality, which a number of groups are now highlighting, where starting on an antidepressant can actually cause a bit of a suicidal crisis early on.
I really think that's what happened.
Yeah.
I really do, because there was no mention of suicide. He had low mood. He was miserable. But the tablets made it worse.
Yeah.
They absolutely made it worse.
Can you just for a moment take us back to those early days for you and for Neil and for the rest of the family after Lewis died? And how did you cope?
Well, it sounds very dramatic. We just guddled through in the beginning. We had lovely neighbours, lovely friends. People dropped off food. I don't remember who fed my children for the first week. I don't know what happened. People came and took them away. Friends, adults that lived lovely people that lived over the back took them away. And
amazing.
They just surrounded us, and it was lovely. I looked out the window one day, so I thought, what is that noise? And there was a girl who I'm very friendly with cutting my front grass, crying, because she knew that we would want the garden to be nice. And she couldn't do anything else, so she cut my grass. And lots of things like that. But we had really just held the children close. And then...
They knew what had happened. There was no secret.
No. And it was age appropriate. And it's very blurry. It is very blurry, because 3 weeks after that, Lyle, who was 13, he was just at secondary school. And he was walking home from school and he was hit by a car. So he had a terrible accident. He'd broken both his legs, broke his arm, just was bashed up. And we got a phone call to say, look, Lyle, we're sitting with the undertaker getting Lewis's ashes back in the front room. And the lady from a charity who we were giving the money to from his service. And I got a phone call from one of the dads that I knew, and he said, Sharon, Lyle's been hit by a car on the Maple Road. So we're just in autopilot. Lucy had nipped to the school to get Luca from school. And Neil drove up the road, and I was like, right, you're bargaining with yourself. And I'm like, right, we're losing another one. And we got there. God love him. His wee leg was up behind his head. And I thought, right, okay, he's alive. They'll cut that leg off. And I heard someone saying, gosh, his mum's so calm. And that girl went, you have no idea. And the ambulance didn't come because there was a terrible road accident further away. So nobody came, and he lay in the road for about half an hour, and a fire engine came. And they said, we've heard you. People keep calling, and we know no one's coming. And a first responder came, and he was shaking. And my friend, who's a nurse, and it was. I don't know how it can be lovely, but my friends came from every direction. My friend's husband ran from his house half a mile away. People drove. All these people just appeared beside us again. And my friend helped the paramedic straighten his leg. And then an ambulance came. So we had that to deal with, and it was nice to have a distraction for the grief, but it would have been nice to have been a wee bit less dramatic. So that took us a couple of years to get him. He had various operations, and you just got to by.
That's an amazing story.
You just do what you have to do.
Did you ever think, please stop this? Please, can we just have a wee break?
The head teacher at the primary school said, I heard about the accident, she said, and she said, not that I want it to happen to anybody, she says, but I said to myself, please God, know this family, know them, enough. And we sometimes have been like, enough. But I think I've never thought this happened to me. It happened to Lewis. It happened to Lyle. And we just need to help them, just gather them up and I think in the whole time it was very much, our house is like a sanctuary to us. And Neil had to go back to work after 2 weeks after losing Lewis because he's self-employed.
Yeah.
And we didn't have savings like lots of people. And we stay in a really lovely area that Neil works really hard to pay for. And I think people don't always get the understanding that you can be living looks like a nice life, but you're struggling and you've a funeral to pay for and you've kids to look after, and yeah.
Anger is a very common part of all grieving, but it feels to me, working in the sphere that I work, that anger is a very significant part of the suicide grief journey. Have you been angry?
Yeah.
What have you done with that anger? Is it still circulating?
I was very angry, but my anger was directed at other people. Maybe rightly or wrongly. I think, going back to the bullying, part of me, I don't know. I think forgiveness is for me. I think that's for my peace. So my anger was definitely directed at other people. I don't know if I can ever fully let go of that. I am not a healed person. I don't pretend to be a saint. I probably a lot anger probably towards myself, guilt because I'm the mum and I should have saved him.
Of course.
I should have done that. I should have had every answer to every question. I know that's not realistic, but when you're in that and you have that pain in your chest, yeah.
Difficult question now, because Lewis was a footballer. And we often talk about sport as a significant part of well-being. You know, when people are struggling, go and learn a new sport, go and run a 10K, whatever. But I know that from the clients that we have worked with in the Canmore Trust and your own story, that sport, particularly those who are operating at a really high level, it can be a real struggle. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there are real mental health challenges in there. It's not all bread and honey. It's not all beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. And particularly, as you have emphasised, when people feel that they're getting to the professional level, they're stepping up, and it just doesn't happen. What are your thoughts on that? What would your comments be on that for those who are big in sport?
Sport is fantastic, and for your mental health, and some people just have to be doing. But when that's taken away from you for whatever reason, if there's nothing there to fall back on, if there's no support, so we're involved with football teams, and I know obviously lots of boys that play football, and when they're let go from a team, it's absolutely devastating. There is not all. I know it's not all cases, but many cases, there is no follow-up for these boys. There's no welfare officer phoning or texting and saying, how are you? How are you getting on? What are you going to do now? Because these boys, it's their whole life. I'm going to be a footballer.
Yeah. And of course, not just boys, but girls.
And girls, yes. I know
and
that
not just
sounds
football.
Just from my point of view, yeah, it's
and
been
not just
boys.
football, rugby, or
every sport. I can't speak on every sport. I just know that they're not supported after it.
Really important point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we need to do better.
Yeah, we all do.
Difficult question, as if any of the previous ones have been easy. Difficult question. What have you learnt about yourself, do you think, since Lewis died?
That's a difficult one. I'm probably more resilient than I thought I was.
I think that's clearly the case, given the stories that you've just recounted to us.
I know, because when you look back at it and things that have happened, and obviously that's a snapshot, and we could talk for hours about the things that have happened and even the funny things, and there has to be humour.
Do you remember the first day that you laughed after Lewis died?
I actually do. So
it's a strange moment, isn't it?
Yeah, I'll tell you, because we tried to get into his phone, and we did get into his phone, and I just wanted to see if there was a note, and if I wanted photos, I just wanted anything. And in hindsight, there was nothing, because he'd wiped his phone. There were certain things it was fine, but that was probably an invasion of his privacy. But it was fine in the end. But in order to get into his phone, you had to link the phone to a bank account for the iTunes. And that was fine. So a few weeks later, Neil's like, what's that? This came out of my bank. He's showing me his bank statement. He went, that's not mine. I went, what is it? He went, look at it. Tinder Plus. So we laughed. And I was like, what a bloody boy. Tinder Plus. And he was like, I'll need to get that cancelled. I was like, it'll be fine, don't worry about it. I don't think it was you.
And Neil's never been the same since.
Tinder Plus.
Fantastic.
So, yeah. But it's like everything we do now, everything is before and after. Everything's tinged with sadness. We laugh and we laugh. And we laugh about the stories and all the daft things that he did. And there was hundreds of daft things that he did in the house. But it's never going to be the same.
Yeah. But it's okay to laugh.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
And there'll be someone watching or listening to this podcast for whom that's a really important message today. It's okay to laugh.
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And one of our phrases at the Canmore Trust is that today's quality postvention is tomorrow's prevention. And I know that as part of your journey of finding purpose following Lewis's death, you've set up an amazing postvention group in Ayr called Healing Connections. Yep. Can you tell us a wee bit about that? And probably importantly for those who are listening or watching, how they might access that face-to-face group?
So we have a group in Ayr, in George Street in Ayr. And we have, I work for a charity called Believe Ayrshire CIC. So this is initially what it was. So that the lady that I work with is my friend, Marna, and she's just a wee shining star. And she pushes me into doing things. She bullies me into doing things in the nicest way possible, because...
Can I just say, I think to describe Marna as a wee shining star is probably a wee bit of an understatement. Can we make Marna this huge, wonderful shining star? Yeah. She's a girl that I knew, but not that well. And she just kept popping up in my life. And I kept meeting her in the supermarket. What you doing? What you doing? And do you know, that way, she pushed and pushed and pushed her way in the nicest way. I don't know where lovely people like that come from or why, but they do. And she's so selfless and encouraging. I sat on my chair, and I was sat in the front room in my house on my chair for 2 years, at least. Couldn't bring myself to go to the supermarket. If I eventually got out, I only went to the supermarket on a Friday.
and I only did the school run. I did nothing. I saw no one. I had good friends that tried to coax me out, and I've lost good friends as well because I couldn't leave the house. So this group, sorry, that's me sidetracked, but this group, I looked for a group and it didn't exist. I was told it existed, but it didn't run for whatever reason. And we went to the famous, a place called Here, for inspiration. I had met Natalie and Anton at Creating Hope, and they were going down the stairs and it was the T-shirts, and I was like, I know you, saw you on social media, and we had a good chat, and they were like, come along. And so I thought, right, we'll go up. And I needed to know what a group looked like, because my whole thing was I was worried that I would damage people if I said, come along to this group, and I didn't know what I was doing. So went to this amazing group, and actually that's made me more emotional than anything, because the people in that group were just so open and loving. And
You're suggesting that Glasgow beats Ayrshire?
I've got a wee Glasgow granny. I love Glasgow. I do. I feel as if when I hear the accent, it's just my people.
But I think it is important to say that the impact that Natalie and Anton have had through a place called Here is truly and genuinely remarkable.
Absolutely. So that group is our blueprint.
Yeah. And
I'll say to them, I'm copying that. I'm stealing that. And they'll be like, absolutely, go ahead, do it. And if it's working, why change it? And Marna and I have done lots of things that they do, and Marna also has brilliant suggestions because she works for another charity, and lots of the wee things that they do in their walking groups, lots of the wee uplifting things that they do, we've implemented it in ours, and we do like gratitude boxes, and we fill in every week, a wee post-it note saying what they're grateful for this week or what they're proud of themselves for this week. And at the end of the year, they can open up, take them away and have a wee read of them. So that's just one of the things. But I didn't want a group to be sitting in a circle, crying into a cup of tea. I just think you're feeding off each other's misery. And I think it's very important that that's not how it is. And I think people are afraid that that's what it is if they've never been before. We ask people to contact me first only because people have contacted me and it's not been a suicide bereavement. And we have to be very specific that you are only there if you've had a suicide bereavement, because it's a very specific grief. I know there are other groups in our area that for bereavements, and I would hope that people could access them easily, but our group has to be a safe space to make that connection for people that have been bereaved by suicide.
Amazing. And if there's someone watching or listening that who lives in South Ayrshire and would like to experience the group, how would they contact you? How would they get us? We're
on Facebook as Believe Ayrshire, CIC. We have Instagram as well. I have an Instagram which is just Sharon at Believe. The telephone number I couldn't rattle off the top of my head.
We'll post it.
Yeah. But just
fantastic.
Everyone's welcome.
Yeah. Sounds like an amazing place.
It is. The people are amazing.
And for my own journey, I mean, it was SOBS for me, Survivors of Bereavement by Suicide in Edinburgh, Jackie Walton's group, really saved my life. I mean, I was there 3 months after Cameron died, and I walked into that room and it was genuinely transformational for me. It really was. Yeah. No judgment.
No.
Just love.
I know. And I think the people, I mean, that's been 9 years before we found a group. We've needed that group. Yeah. We've all needed it. And some people are very recent. I mean, I know we went to the Glasgow group and there was a person who it was 3 weeks, and the person sitting beside me had been 30 years. Yeah. It's needed. It doesn't matter what stage you're at.
You're so right. And one of the things that has opened up for me recently in discussion, particularly with clients south of the border, is that we have coroner's inquests in England, which any potential suicide that will go through that process. We don't have that in Scotland. Do you think that would be helpful to have that in Scotland, where all of the factors that we've talked about today in Lewis's case might be explored publicly, Do you think that would help us understand suicide and might help us create a safer Scotland?
Yes. In a word, yes. We had an adverse event review because Lewis was in touch with services, and rather impolitely, I'll call it the arse covering exercise, because that's what I feel it was.
Okay.
We struggled to access proper help for Lewis, and then Lewis died and people were falling over themselves to talk to me. I had a psychologist, a psychiatrist, a doctor, a nurse, all want to speak to me.
Yeah.
I thought, if you had been able to speak to my son, might not have made a difference, but why?
Why now?
Why now?
Yeah.
And we got this thing done, and then I have a friend who is a coroner in England, and she read it and she went, sue them. When you read it, she said, sue them. And I said, I don't have the heart for it. I just was trying to hold my family together, and we were literally clinging to each other.
Sure.
I just didn't have the heart for it.
Yeah.
And the fiscal was amazing. I spoke to a lovely lady at the fiscal's office, and she went through everything. I said, please don't send it to me. I said, because I don't need that to come through my letterbox in a few weeks' time if I'm having a good day. Yep. And that hitting my doormat, and then me reading that autopsy, everything, whatever they send you. So I've not actually seen that. But I was speaking to a lady recently who did get that hitting her doormat, and she said parts of it were horrific. She said, because I had to read bits that I didn't need to know about,
so
but
painful.
what they actually did in an autopsy. If you want to look at that, if you want to read that online, do it. And I was very grateful that the lady didn't send me it. So I think in a coroner's inquest, a family, if they were going to discuss that, would probably say, you can leave the room just now, or we're going to discuss this. And also to feel heard. And there was lots of things I wanted to say, and nobody to say them to. Yeah. No reply from the police. A report that was done after speaking to us, and the first thing I did when they came to the house to speak to us, I was like, this is Lewis, this is a photo of Lewis. Please look at who you're actually talking about, because nobody's asked what he was, who he was, what he looked like. It's very anonymous and very impersonal.
Yeah. Well, there's two big changes. We're going to ban social media for under 16s, and we're going to develop a new system. It wouldn't be coroner's inquest, but fiscal's inquest in Scotland. I think these are really helpful suggestions, and who knows which of our political masters might be listening to a Canmore Trust podcast. So some really helpful suggestions there. Perhaps the toughest of questions, have you been suicidal since Lewis died?
Yeah. I don't think anyone that's experienced this has not been. And if you haven't, I'm glad for you. Yeah. Because it's a very real option, especially in the beginning. You just know where to put that pain. You just don't know what to do with it. It's just...
Except go to Healing Connections now.
Yes, obviously.
Yeah.
If you've got got help now.
Except going to a place called Here.
Yeah. At that point, we had nothing other than each other. And I was very fortunate that I have an amazing husband. I can see how marriage is split up, because if you are grieving differently from the person that you're with, that's never going to work.
So difficult.
Mm-hmm. I think you have to just talk. And my poor husband, I talk at him. And I would Google things. I needed to know everything about everything. Why did that look like that? Why did that happen? Why did that happen? And I would say to him, if this is too much for you, if I'm overwhelming you, and he would say, no, I need it. I'm processing it. And I think there was only ever one thing that I said to him, and he said, I wish you hadn't told me that. It's just talking. Yeah. Basically, to anybody that will listen to you.
Thank you for sharing that. You've done a wee bit of the politics already, but I'm going to ask you the question that I ask everyone on a Canmore Trust podcast, and that is, I'm going to elevate you to leadership within Scotland, within the United Kingdom, and I'm going to pass a blank sheet of paper across the table to you. So, unlimited ideas, unlimited budget. What would you like to do to bring the numbers of suicides down radically in our country?
We need to be a big budget. I think lots of people will probably give you the same answer. And a huge, especially in Scotland and the west of Scotland, is poverty and child poverty. I think it starts in schools. Children are not taught how to deal with their own money, how to... There's an expectation. I spoke to a lady last year when I first started doing this, and she comes from a deprived area, and she has got an amazing job. And she went to her own wee school again. There's where we again. And she went to the school again that she started at, and she was speaking to the kids, and they were like, "Oh, but you probably went here and you probably did this." And she was like, "No, I went to this school." I mean, you couldn't have went to this school. You've got a really good job. And it's so sad that children at that age have these limiting beliefs that they can't do it. I'll not get a good job, I stay in this area. And again, back to the scheme that we lived in, we were not well off. We were loved. We had a lovely clean house. But my mum and dad never had much spare cash. And I didn't know that. And I didn't know we didn't have a lot until I went to secondary school.
Okay.
And then the divide becomes clear. And I think just bridging that gap for lots of children is a big help. And I think for suicide, building resilience in children in schools, I can't criticise our schools because they were amazing. And our secondary school, again, was very nurturing. But there's no enough. There's no enough of anything. Everybody's struggling. Teachers' budgets, everything. There just needs to be more money. There needs to be more trust in small charities that are working on the ground. Things need to be funded from the bottom up, no from the top down. I think trusting us to know what we're doing with the money. And see if we're not doing what we've said with the money, we'll give you it back, take it back from us. People that are working in third sector, first year, are doing suicide prevention every single day. And we had that conversation one-to-one. One-to-one's not you being a psychiatrist, it's you having a cup of coffee with somebody and saying, "Are you all right?
I'm here in the moment for you."
Yeah. It's a 10-minute conversation. It's standing beside somebody in a queue at Tesco's. "Are you all right?" And
Other supermarkets are available.
Aye. It's everyday things. It's just, it sounds so trite. It's be kind.
No, it doesn't sound trite at all.
It's just be a bloody nice person.
Yeah.
Everybody is struggling. Everybody is struggling with something that you just don't know about.
You mentioned poverty, and I completely agree with you. Poverty is a big factor in many of the suicide deaths that we have in families that we've tried to support and help. Do you think our politicians understand that there is poverty in this country?
I think they understand. I think some don't care.
Okay.
I think some are so far removed from poverty, they don't know what it looks like. They don't know that it's a wee child that's at school in the morning with a hole in their shoe, that never had their breakfast, that had no hot water to get washed in the morning. And a lot of them talk a good game, but they're not doing enough.
There's a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
There's a challenge. What do you think you've learned about suicide and how to prevent it fundamentally? It
doesn't discriminate. It could be anybody. It's it just blows my mind that it can be anybody. After Lewis passed, we knew at least one person every single month for more than a year. Sometimes 2 a month. So much so that it got to the stage where we're like, who's next?
Yeah.
And that's terrifying.
Yeah.
It's the sons of dentists. It's the children of painters. It's men that you went to school with. It's women that you see in the school run that have got wee kids. It doesn't discriminate, and it could be any one of us any day, and with no warning. It is terrifying.
Yeah. And so we need to get upstream. We need to get into schools, colleges, universities, workplaces, and do what we need to do in terms of education support.
Yeah. Definitely.
Major
definitely
shift is required.
Yeah. They need to talk about it openly, and there's still a fear that if you mention suicide, say the word, it's
coming.
It's going to, you're going to make that happen, and that's just not the case.
Yeah, absolutely not the case. Perhaps some lighter question as we head towards the end of our podcast. What are your hobbies or pastimes, Sharon? What are you reading just now? Who's your favourite author? All of the above.
So I read this question out to Neil, and I was saying, what about this, what about that? He went, your hobbies? He said, buying handbags. So, aye, that's true. I love a handbag.
Ayrshires Imelda Marco,
Oh, definitely. But hobbies, again, all of them. I have a problem with hobbies. If you want to start a hobby tomorrow, I will guarantee you I have the full kit in my house to start that hobby. I sometimes even buy everything for a hobby and then don't even do it because I'm fed up with it by the time the stuff arrives. So my latest thing is sourdough.
Oh, great, good.
So I've started that. So of course things are started arriving to do that, and I've got my starter started. So yes, I very much flip from one thing to the next because I just want to do everything. If I see something in the shop, I think, I'm not buying that, I can make that.
Yeah.
So I've always been like that, and I sew, and...
So that's not a post-Lewis thing, that's Sharon's always been
everything.
like that.
I've got everything to make everything you could ever think of. Pottery, painting, sewing,
Fantastic.
everything.
Fantastic. And do you read?
I do read, not as avidly as I did. I find it difficult to concentrate now the way I did. I've gone to audiobooks a wee bit now, which is good. My concentration levels are not great anymore, and that is menopause. It is grief. There might be something else in there as well, but audiobooks. But I have
favourite author.
I'm just now. I've started reading actually a book, How to Kill a Witch.
Oh,
so that's a really good. It wasn't what I thought it was, and I started reading it, and it's about the patriarchy and about witches and the witch trials. And I'm not into fiction very much. I never have been. I've also, again, before we started this, we're talking about TV programmes. I watch 3 or 4 things at a time. I read 3 or 4 things at a time. So I read heavy stuff, I read light stuff. And for the past 3 months, I've been trying to wade through a book called The Gulag Archipelago. So I think if you get past the first few chapters, you're winning.
Is that Alexander Solzhenitsyn?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
so heavy book.
I know.
Yeah.
And I think just things about resilience that just call to me. Do you know that way?
And I think what that book did for me was it made me realise that I didn't have all the grief in the world.
Yes.
That there's a communal grief, that there's a universal grief out there. And that's really helpful for me to realise.
To me as well, because I think you can get very insular and into your own self and poor me, and we're never poor me. This has happened. Yeah. We'll move forward. So I like to read things like that, but I don't have a favourite author because I read just whatever pops up.
Fantastic. Have you any unfulfilled aspirations for life?
Again, I probably have that delusion where I think I can do anything and I just try it. So most things that I've wanted to do, I do. One thing, again, when we were talking earlier about jobs and things, the one thing that I didn't get to do in my life was I thought I was going to be a nun. I'm not religious in any way, but when I was a child, I was going to be a nun.
You like the uniform?
I liked the uniform. And I had a children's Bible that I used to drive my mum and dad mental with because they're just like, oh, she's in that children's Bible again. So I was a wee bit of a God botherer for a while when I was a child. But the only other thing that I've not been able to do is swim.
Okay.
So everything else, I think, I'll have a go at that, but I can't swim.
And is that a plan afoot?
No, I've nearly drowned a couple of times trying, so probably no.
Okay. 2 questions just to finish. One concerning how you keep safe. How do you keep well?
Yeah.
Because your story is remarkable. What you've shared with us is truly challenging and amazing. How does Sharon Johnstone stay well in 2026?
Again, I'm a yapper, a chronic oversharer.
Okay.
I'll talk to anybody. I talk to Neil. I just that the simplest thing is Neil and I are best pals, and it's lovely. There's nothing we can't share with each other.
Right.
We have got 2 beautiful grandchildren now as well, which has brought us immense joy. I think there was a time where I thought maybe we weren't going to get any grandchildren. And we're young, and my kids are young, but there was just a moment I thought we're not going to get grandchildren, and that would have been heartbreaking because we've had 4 children. We've got a big family by all accounts. So that's loving them just keeps me safe, and chatting to my friends, and Marna makes sure I'm fine. Marna makes sure there are wellness things involved, and you get yourself for a massage, you get yourself for a facial, things like that.
Lovely. Your check-in buddy.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I'm at the beach a lot. I love the beach.
Walking, swimming? Well, we don't swim,
No,
so
we don't
just
swim.
walking.
So we walk on the beach, and sometimes just sit in the car with a wee hot chocolate for Costa. Other coffee shops are available.
Fantastic. Really helpful suggestions. My final question to you, and it's perhaps the toughest question for all of us, and that is, if someone is listening or watching this podcast today who is suicidal and feels life just ebbing away, what would you want to say to them, Sharon?
It's difficult because you would never want to minimise someone's pain and promise them that you could make it better, you could take it away. And people struggle their whole lives with their mental health. And for me to sit and say, oh, don't do it. This is that. This is the wrong thing for you. I've been there. And I would just say, as a mother, please don't. You might think that folk don't care or that you're doing what you should do. You're not. Somebody loves you, even if you think they don't. The devastation that it causes and the ripples of family and friends and forever. It never gets better. It never goes away. I would never, again, I don't want to minimise people's pain. I would just ask that they ask for help.
Yeah.
Talk to somebody, anybody.
And it sounds like there's a big hug.
Yeah.
If you walk up Ayr High Street
Absolutely,
someday, there's a
absolutely.
big hug.
I speak to everybody. And sometimes the kids will say, who's that? And I'll say, I don't know. I just talk to her every day, or I just talk to him. I don't know their name, and I'm terrible for names. And it's a feeling in my part because as soon as I speak to somebody, I instantly forget their name. but I'll remember I spoke to you and I'll speak to you again. And if you see me, speak to me and I'll cuddle you. I'm a cuddler. I've got a best pal that's not a cuddler. And she's like, you're the only person I cuddle. But yeah, please.
But connectedness and kindness.
Yes.
Yeah.
Speak to somebody.
Sharon, we're done. My goodness, it's been an utter pleasure to have you on the Canmore Trust podcast. Thank you so much for being part of it today. And I wish you well with Healing Connections and all of the stuff that you're doing in Ayrshire and beyond. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, John.
So thank you for being part of this episode of the Canmore Trust podcast and Sharon's amazing story. We hope that you've benefited from hearing all that she has shared with us today. So your safety is paramount to us here at the Canmore Trust, and if anything of today's discussion and conversation has activated concerns within you about your own safety, would you please not hesitate to reach out. You can engage with the Canmore Trust anytime, day or night, by texting Canmore, Canmore, to 85258, or you can call the Papyrus 24/7 Hope line on 0800 068 4141, or you can call Samaritans again any time of the day or night on 116 123. As I said in opening, the Canmore Trust's website, www.thecanmoretrust.co.uk, has an extensive list of resources for anyone seeking help on any aspect of well-being, mental ill health or suicide. Please access it and use that resource. If you're struggling, please reach out. If you know someone that is concerning you, would you please reach out? Thank you so much for being part of the Canmore Trust podcast, and we'll see you on a future episode.